All righty, now we're ready to roll. If you recall, yesterday we left. We had a pretty long bit of introduction to SharePoint, and we just kept hammering over and over. SharePoint is basically three things: lists, libraries, and subsites. And we talked about the libraries and we talked about the subsites, but we really didn't get into the lists. And that's what we're going to touch on today, because that's where the real power of storing data in SharePoint is. But before we get started, I'd like to introduce the team here again. I'm Bryce Fields. I'm the Director of User Experience here at NIC. With me is Mr. Adam Thornton. He's a project manager here at NIC, and he's overseeing the SOS redesign project. And I neglected to mention this fine gentleman yesterday, someone you'll probably become very familiar with later on. Sean Amsbury is also with us, and he is our, what's the cool term I came up with it? Support services engineer. I think I change it slightly every time, but when you call up on when you call the help desk, Sean is the one that always fixes your problems. And he's also the guy who typically does the training and is much more interesting and better at this than me, and I'm sorry that he knows nothing about your site at the moment, and you don't get to listen to him instead of me. But in the future, Sean's going to know everything you ever wanted to ask about the site, but we're afraid to. Before we get rolling, I think Adam has some announcements about like reporting bugs, and when you're working on your content and you're working on the staging site, one thing to remember is it's still under development. You might notice things are broken, and Mr. Thornton is going to tell you how to handle that.
All right, thanks, Bryce. So like Bryce was saying earlier about Sean being our main guy for the help desk, he will be helping support you guys once you're in production. So he'll be fielding all tickets and support requests once you're in production. But what we did specific to you guys for the new SOS site is we created a branch off our ticketing system, which is just specific to you guys and what you're doing now in the content build-out. So what that means is, after this meeting, I'm going to be sending a link and information to Dave, and which he'll forward on to you guys. And this link is basically the link to our help desk that's specific to the content build out for the SOS site. So you'll want to create an account. It's really easy to create an account for our help desk ticketing system. By creating an account, this allows you to not only log tickets or create tickets, but also track them. So there's like a little search interface there. So if you have 20 tickets, if you log in, you can view all of your 20 tickets and see the status of those tickets. Also, when you create tickets, you will be sent emails when there's either communication from someone on our end to you, either the ticket's solved or asking more questions or needing you to attach a screenshot. So you'll be getting these through your email, as well as if the ticket status changes, like I said, if it's been marked resolved or whether it's been assigned, that sort of thing. So I'll be passing all that information to Dave, and he'll be getting it out to you guys. I'll be fielding most of those tickets. I'm going to try my best to answer them as quickly as possible. I'm guessing that the tickets will range from potential support issues. I forgot how to add a hyperlink, or I forgot how to create a new page, or something to that regard. And I'm going to try my best to answer those help questions as quickly as I can. Other uses for this ticket tracking is if you do come across something that you feel isn't working correctly, a potential bug, and that way I can assign that to the necessary individual, which is probably Bryce.
Yes.
Because remember, during this content build-out, this is also the QA portion of the project. So as you're building out your content, you're also testing out the SharePoint instance and making sure that everything's working the way it should for you guys. And like I said, you come across anything you feel isn't working correctly, then you would create a ticket for that, and then we would investigate and keep you apprised to what we find and if we need to fix it and when we're going to fix it and all that great stuff. And just to reiterate, you might also have questions about certain, remembering how to use certain parts of the SharePoint interface, which I'll do my best to answer those questions as quickly as I can. Heads up for those emails. I'll be coming out from Dave with that information, and I think that's kind of it for me.
Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Adam Thornton, give him a hand. And again, as just to drive it home one more time, it's like this is the QA portion. If you guys are going to break this lovely site we're building for you, I would prefer you do it now. Actually, I'm begging you to do it now. Go out and find what's broken, what doesn't work right, and let us know so we can fix it, so we have a nice, healthy site when we go live.
Where's Michelle Brady when you need her?
All righty then. Without further ado, let's start talking about the lists on the Secretary of State's website and how you're going to use them. As you may recall from yesterday, you've got every site is broken down into 3 pieces. Again, you're going to hear it over and over: lists, libraries, and subsites. And each of those subsites have their own lists and libraries. If you start at what we call the parent site, the root site, two phrases we use interchangeably, which would be from the Secretary of State homepage, site actions, view all site content. You'll see that it's, when you're in view all site content, you'll recall that it's broken down into a list of individual libraries, lists, and subsites that go with it. Lists are these really, really cool features in SharePoint that they're basically exactly what they sound like. They allow you to create fields and make just lists of data that you can use on your website. For example, let me pull up something here. I want you to look at the, and I've been told I kind of click a little too fast and there's a delay, so let me slow down just a bit as I talk. I can see on Adam's screen what you're seeing. When you go to the the Secretary of State homepage, you'll notice you've got this featured content rotator here, and we've stolen 2 pieces of featured content for Business Express for now, just as example pieces. But all of this data that powers this piece is stored in a list, and it is controlled in. And this is, I'm just showing this one to you for example. Normal authors won't necessarily be using this list. This will probably be something to be controlled by your web ninjas. But it's controlled by this list called the homepage carousel, and if you'll click on it and look into it, you'll notice, hey, there's the same title I'm seeing. There's the images that go with it. You get your little subsection headings are in there. You get your little item links to whatever they're going to link to are in there. Plus, we've built in a couple of other pieces to it for sort order, which tells it, okay, this one appears first, this one appears second, whether the item is to display or not. Suppose we've got something seasonal we don't want to show all the time, maybe like, say, during business registration season. Is there a business registration season? Tax season, let's say. I can go in and turn a certain item on and off, and it'll appear or not appear in the list. And lists are very flexible and very easy to use. Adding a new item is as easy as clicking the new item button, filling in all the fields that you've created yourself, saving and going on. You could even modify current lists fairly easily in the list settings. And again, this is more of a ninja thing than it is a regular web author thing, but I just want to show you how flexible and powerful these tools really are. Okay, suppose, for instance, I wanted to create a feature item that had an expiration date, and I'm going to be on vacation and I don't want to be bothered with having to actually log in and tell it to quit showing. I can go in and create a column, and let's just call it, and SharePoint has all these different types of what the lists can be. It could be a single line of text, multiple line of text, numbers. I want date and time. And I do not want to require this to have field. It's going to be a date and a time that I will be able to pick. It's not going to have a default value. I don't want everything to just shut off automatically. I want to be able to specify it. Click OK. And then I can go and build in my logic into my web part later on that says if something is past this certain date, don't show it. And that's just a real quick example of how flexible those lists can be. You can use them for just about anything, and we do on the Secretary of State website. We use them for just about everything. For example, this carousel, like I said, is a list. Your featured online services, all of your online services are going to be stored in a list, and then we're also flagging out just 6 to show on the home page at any given time. These featured links are a list, And when you drill down into the site, and I keep using audits as my example, we'll stick with that. All the items here on this overview page come from a list. You drill down even farther into the site, everything in your left nav comes from a list. And I did pick the one page without an accordion on it, so let me pick one with an accordion. And you'll see, if you click around the site, you'll see these structures. This is what we're referring to when we talk about an accordion. These are pages that have several higher level task-oriented headings to them. And by accordion, we mean some of them are expandable and collapsible. And we'll show you how to configure those here in a minute. So you could store a lot of data, and it expands and collapses like an accordion, and that's where the term comes from. And some of them, you'll notice you don't get the little arrow over here when you mouse over it. Those are direct links to actual other web pages, or they will be by the time you guys get through building them. So the three lists that there's actually a few lists that you're going to be dealing with on a regular basis. That's the overview categories, the overview navigations, and each site has its own accordion list, and we'll start getting into those here in a second. Let me go back to the home page. I'm just going to open that up in another tab here, so I can keep my other page open. We're talking about now how to configure. We were talking the other day about when we were built the example of building a page that I would show you guys how to work that, how to add that left nav in, and we're gonna go down that road now. First, you need to understand where that data is stored. And when you go to the parent site, the home page site, if you go to the home page, site actions, view all site content, and again, look at the list. There are two lists here. One's called overview categories and one's called overview navigation. Now the overview categories, I'm going to open this in another tab. If you take a look at it, is just a list of categories, basically. And these categories are what we're going to use to tell the web part where a certain item shows up. And you'll of course notice that it's broken down closely to business, voting, elections, archives, audits, your main sections. And then we've got another special one in here because we've got a special one of these overview pages. I'm just going to open up another tab again. We've got a special one of these overview pages that we use for somewhere else on the site, and just don't worry about that. So, if you drill into the overview navigation list, you'll see a whole bunch of information, a whole bunch of data, and this data is presented like 30 items at a time. So we're looking at just a small piece of it right now. I think when you go to one of those overview pages like this, every button on those pages and every item in this left nav, in all the left navs in all your sites, are represented in this list. And while that might look like an overwhelming amount of information, and oh my God, I'll never find what I'm looking for, I just want to point out that one little trick you can do is to if you know what section of the site you're in, like our example site is, right now we're messing with audits. So if you can go in and filter on audits, and suddenly you see just the items that are related to audits. And if you'll take a look, if your search state archives is there, your search file and municipal audits is there, and each one of these 6 items are represented here in this list. So when the web page is being assembled, and like if somebody types in sosoregon.gov/audits and they land on this page, what SharePoint is doing is saying it's got a control in it that's going, and we'll show you how to configure the control in a minute. All right, I need the data from this list that belong to the category audits, and I'm going to go and get its link, its description, and its title, and I'm going to put it all together and make these little boxes. And you'll see right now they're all the same, the lorem ipsum descriptions. Those will be, of course, configured when your content manager and web ninjas decide what those actual blurbs are going to be, but that would be configured there as well. SharePoint also has a web part that we're going to show you how to drop on a page in a minute, that will go in and grab just the link information and not the description information for everything that belongs to audits and build this left nav menu. So you can see the lists are very powerful and a very, very cool way for storing information, especially if you want to do things in such a way that your average web author doesn't need to know the HTML to make them look right. Because when you look at these structures here, you can see that they've got a certain look and feel to them, and they behave a certain way, and that there's some fairly complicated HTML and CSS that goes on under the hood that while we could ask the web ninjas to understand how to do it, to expect the typical web author to how to do it is just out of the question. So the typical web author only has to know about how to update these lists to update the page, and you might never have to open up the page at all once you've dropped the web part on there. So that's two of the main lists that you're going to be concerned with. The third one is going to be, and since I've already got the audits page open, is the accordion task list is what it's called, and it's the list that supplies all the data for these drop-down lists. And each site, if you go into like business, voting, elections, state archives, or the case that I'm in right now, audits, if you go into that individual site and go to its site actions, view all site content, you'll notice that when the page loads, you'll see all its document libraries. If it has any sub-sites, it'll be there as well. But here under the list, everyone has an accordion's tasks list, and this is the the audit's accordion tasks. And if you click on that and expand it, you'll start to notice, yes, oh my God, there's a whole bunch of data there as well. And all this data is what powers all the accordions and all these pages. If you start clicking through it, almost all of these pages already have some pre-populated accordions we've put in place. Oops, sorry, jumping around. And all of this information comes from that one list. So, again, it seems like an overwhelming amount of information, but once you know the trick for filtering down how to get to the pieces you want, it's not so bad. For instance, I think the example I'm using right now is I'm on the waste and fraud, report government waste, fraud, or abuse page. And we've got these individual items that are part of the accordion that goes on that page. If you'll notice, there's a field here called tags. And tags, we use it much like categories that we use in the overview list, in that we give each group of related data a tag on which page we want it to show up on. And so and it's up to your web ninjas to decide what these tags are going to be. They can call them Johnny Carinos if they want to, as long as everybody agrees to use Johnny Carinos when they're building that web part. Hopefully they choose names that are closely reminiscent of the web page for which it belongs. So I'm talking about the fraud page, and you'll notice it's got the name fraud, and what I've done as a convention is whatever that web page name is what I was using for the tag. Again, could be whatever your web ninjas choose. And I can filter on just fraud. So now, you'll notice there's the report online, there's the view current hotline, there's the view prior years, and suddenly you'll start to know, it starts to look a little more manageable. All that information all those individual list pieces are right there. And each one of these individual pieces is what contains the data that shows up under the expanding parts. Any question before we get into a little further? Nope, Adam says we're good to go. So a little water for me. I hope you guys are still awake. I'm going to try to get you out of here in time to where you can actually give your bosses excuses to get out today and go outside and play and have time to enjoy the day. Going back to your task list, and again, just to reiterate, each of the main sites on your page, on the SOS site, has a task list associated with it. So there's a business accordion tasks, there's a voting accordion tasks, and all the data and all the accordions with it under those pages that's where you will find them. That's where you would go to edit that content. We know how to filter it down. Let's suppose we wanted, let me show you, like if you were going to add a new item in the tools under the items tab in the ribbon, there would be a new item button. And something I'm just wanting to get across real quick so that you understand it is since there are two types of lists, you may recall, or two types of accordion pieces I mentioned. You can have the ones that have the information contained underneath it, and then you have the ones that are direct links to somewhere. You have two types of information that you could possibly enter into this list. One is its content and everything that sliding piece is supposed to contain, or a link to where it's supposed to go. And if you open this window, you'll notice that I have 3 of these fields are labeled A, and 2 of them are labeled B. And I try to give you instructions in here that you are to complete A or B, but not both. If it's a link to just one place, fill out the information for A. If it's information that's expandable and there's going to be content hidden under that piece, you fill out the information for B. Everything else you would fill out just as you normally would. And let's just do an example or two so you get an idea here, because this is really where I think a lot of the bulk of your editing is going to come in. Let's just do a link to Google. We're going to throw out a link to Google under report fraud. Maybe when you want to report fraud to Google. Give it a title. And of course, since we're going to do a link to Google, it's www.google.com. Since I'm doing A or B, but not both, I'm not concerned with content that may be under that link, because we're not meaning for it to expand. So I don't have to worry about giving it a hashtag either, and we'll explain more about what the hashtag is in a minute. But I do want it to show up on the fraud page, and don't worry, nice people at Audits, I will delete this after training. And I want to give it an item, a sort order. And by sort order, that is a numerical number that tells it in what order you want it to appear on that list. And you'll see over here on the side, I don't know if you can actually see this. Let me drag it towards a little more onto the screen. Can they see that? Right here? We've got 5 items there already. So if you want this to appear to be like the last item on the list, you can give it a sort order of 6. Now, if I wanted it to be item 2 or 3 or 4, I have 2 choices. I can make this item 3, then I can go in and edit item 3 and make it item 4, then edit item 4 and make it item 5, or edit item 5 and make it item 6. Or if I wanted this to appear between 2 and 3, I could give it like an order of 2.5. Now, you can do that, but then it gets kind of confusing if you start getting finer and finer with your decimals. So I would suggest just biting the bullet and going in and edit all those items. I think the most that I've seen, there's only like 7 or 8 in them, so and it's not hard to open something up and change it. Well, I'm going to make this one appear as number 3. So let's save that item, and you'll see it's got a sort order of 3. This one has a sort order of 3. If I left it as is, when 2 things have the same sort order, SharePoint would then try to render them alphabetically. So when you think about it, this starts with a V, this starts with a G. I'm still good, but I'm not really teaching you guys a way to a best practice unless I show you how to go in and edit that particular item. And there's 2 ways to edit the item. You can click the checkbox and click the Edit Item button up here, or you can mouse over this title field, and you'll notice this little drop-down menu appears. And the drop-down menu is sort of like a shortcut menu to where you can do all sorts of things. One of them is Edit Item. And I make that one number 4. Save it. And then I'm going to edit number 4. Make it number 5. Save it. And I'm going to edit number 5. Make it number 6. And make them work for myself, because I'm just going to have to go back and put all this back later. But now if I go back and refresh this page, back over there, if I refresh my my fraud page, I should see right there, third item, link to Google. Son of a gun. So that's how you add the links. Now let's suppose I want to go in and add content. So let's create another section called List of Search Engines, now that I can spell. And then we're going to make this appear on the fraud page as well. And remember, if it's just the link, I create A. If it's content that's going to be under the link, I do B. So a little secret here, if you look up in the upper right-hand corner, you have this window-looking thing. Click, and it'll expand that window to fill your screen. Now, when you click on the content field, you'll notice you get your editing toolbars like you do if you were editing the page. And from here, you can create content just like we talked about yesterday when you create pages and you click into that editable region of main content, or page content I think it's called, or like the left or right nav, or the relative content or the left nav. From here, it's just like you're creating any other content. One thing I do want to point out is, first you'll add any content you want here, but you'll notice that some of these items are going to have cool icons associated with them. These icons are assigned with what's, if you're familiar with cascading style sheets or CSS, they're basically any list item any bulleted list item that appears under this piece of content is given an icon. So it's very important that if you want something to be iconized, you use the bulleted list to create the item. And let's just do Bing. We've got to make the nice people at Microsoft happy. And I want to insert a link. Don't forget to type your HTTP, bing.com. Hit enter. I'm going to do Yahoo, which is really not a search engine anymore, but what the heck. I'm going to insert a link. HTTP, don't forget that, www.yahoo.com. Click OK. And we're going to create one more for our good pals at Google. Insert link. www. Hey, don't forget your HTTP. www.google.com. Click OK. Enter twice. Yada, yada, yada. Whatever your content may be. Now the other thing about the other part of this is the hashtag. And by hashtag, if you'll notice when you mouse over one of these items, look right down in the bottom right hand of your screen, or of my screen, where you can see where the URL is showing up. That is actually pointing to a URL of fraud.aspx #online. And what that means is, if somebody wants to, if somebody actually comes to that web address, this page would load with the online piece expanded. So, if somebody is working the phones and they want to give information to someone who's called in on how to go and report online, they could give out the web address fraud.aspx #online. When the person comes to that page, that information is already expanded, and they don't have to go in and actually do the opening themselves. So it's just like a little time saver and a way to deep link into a page when it's in this state right here, like what you're seeing. So with that in mind, when it comes to choosing hashtags, try to keep it related to your topic so it kind of makes some logical sense, and try to keep it short, and try to keep no spaces. Actually, there's no try to, no spaces. So my hashtag for this would be search engines. And then I'd give it a tag. I want it to show up on the audits page. And that is the tag, right? I mean, take a look. Oh, fraud. I want it to show up on the fraud page. Glad I looked. I would have been embarrassed when it didn't show up. and I wanted to have sort order 7 because I don't want to have to go in and reorder everything again. I just want to be able to delete this one when I'm done with an example. When I click Save, there's that new item. I clearly typed the Google wrong, but we hit refresh. There's that new item added. Now, one of the things you'll probably be doing is for the most part, we've already gone ahead and set up most of the accordion. I'd say almost all of the accordions that you're ever going to have on the site, unless your web ninjas feel you're going to need more. And if they do, they might actually be the ones to go in and actually create the basis for you, and all you would ever have to do is maybe go in and edit the content or the link. I don't know. That's for them to decide. But for the most part, most of the accordions are actually, or the lists are actually going to be built. Most of the data is actually going to be there. And suppose I had something I wanted to add to the report online. My task was to go in and change that. I would go in, edit that item, click in like I'm going to click into the content area, add my new link, once I can type, or whatever the information I got to add is in, and since I'm a big fan of Google, I'm going to make it link to Google again, just because I can type Google fast. Click Save. And if I go back and refresh that content, I've now added my new link, which takes me to Google. So it's just like editing a web page, only your content is in the list. And that's the basics for how you manage the accordion tasks. And let me make sure, I'm going through my notes now. I want to make sure I didn't miss anything because okay, I think I got it all covered. I mean, all that is very well and good, but does it help you actually get information on the page? You know, that's, I know how to get it into the list, Bryce, but like when I create a new page, I need to know how to drop this navigation onto the page, for instance. And so, let's just go ahead and create us a new page. And if you recall, we said you create a new page by going to the parent, to the site where you want to create it. In this case, I'm in Audits, Site Actions, View All Site Content. I want to go to its Pages directory, and you'll notice, oh, somebody's working. Look at that. Good girl. Nicole Jordan, you get a gold star. You're working in there. Go. I'm sorry. I got ahead of myself now. Go to the Pages library, and that's where you create your new pages. You'll notice that the page I created yesterday, I went ahead and deleted. Short-sighted on me. I should have used it. New. 2 columns, because that's the one that you always that you will use most of the time. I'm just going to call it test page because I have no imagination. Again, you can fill in description if you want. It's useless to anything except SharePoint itself. It's not going to do anything for your pages. It's not going to end up on your page. Only if you're really, really obsessive compulsive, fill in description. Create, and you'll look right there. You'll notice there's my new test page in draft. So now I'm going to go and add some content to it. And I am going to edit this page. And we talked about I need a left nav for this page. Don't we all? First thing you do is you'll click into the left nav column, and the way you get this data out of overview navigation, and we're looking at the audits, we're looking at it filtered for audits right now, the way you get that data out of there and onto here is with something called a Content Query Web Part, or CQWP for short. So Content Query Web Part is what really powers most of the data on your site. You will click into the column where you want to add it, click Insert, and one of the buttons you'll notice is Web Part. When you click the Web Part button, you get a list of categories, and a list of web parts. Now, you might be inclined to, you might click on this and like see like your list over here under the lists and libraries web parts. That's not the web part you want. You always want the content roll-up, and under that will be content query. Content query web part, and I'm going to show you one more. The content editor web part will be the two that you use most of the time. And content editor web part is for embedding things like videos on a page, and that's a more advanced topic, and we'll probably go over that individually with you as you need it. But for right now, content query web part. Again, insert the web part, content rollup, content query, click add, and you'll notice right there it says content query. To configure this web part, open the tool pane, and to open the tool pane, when you mouse over the little down caret here and click, you'll get an option to edit web part. Now, SharePoint, in all its wisdom, sticks it all the way over here. For some of you on smaller screen resolutions, it might be off screen. It might look something like, well, I guess it won't be off screen. Maybe I'm a better developer than I thought. If you don't see it after you click edit, scroll over. It's probably over there somewhere. So go looking. Okay, so we've got the content query web part on the page. We've got the tool pane open. How do we get the data in? Well, the first thing you do is you have to go and tell it where to find the data. So to do that, one of the options here is query. Expand query, and you'll have this third option, show items from the following list. We know there's one list out there we want to get data from. So let's browse to it. And if you recall, everything is in the overview navigation. So just click and highlight the overview navigation, click OK. SharePoint will do a little thinking, a little loading, a little reloading. Take its time, smack the side of your screen to make you feel better. And you're now tied into the content. You now have your content query web part pointed at the right list. And it'll tell you right here if you'll scroll over, overview navigation. But Bryce, where's my data? I'm not seeing any data. Hold on, kids, we're getting there. If you'll scroll down after you've chosen your list to the additional filters section, you'll notice I'm telling it no filter right now. If I did that, and I click save and OK, everything in my overview navigation list would show up. Let me clear that filter. That's everything. We don't want that. We just want to see the audits pieces. So I want to filter on category, and you may say choose is equal to. We've actually got it set up, maybe you should use contains, because it's possible for something to have more than one category, and that way they can use that piece on different sections of the site. If it said is equal to, it could only be the word audits. If it says contains, that category can be audits, it can be business, it could be whatever it's been configured to be. And the thing is, the spelling is specific, so this is why I especially showed you the overview category list. It might help to come in here, copy it word for word, pop it in there. Or if you're confident in your spelling, you could just make sure that you type in audits, but keep in mind capitalization is important. So if it's capitalized over here, if it's capitalized in this list and this list here, by the way, I don't know if you caught on yet, these categories are pulled from this list. If I ever need to add another category to this list, I can come in here and add a new item and call it Woolly Booger or whatever I want my category to be, and suddenly it'll start being able to be used in this list. So make sure capitalization, category contains, no other filters required on this particular list. We want to set the presentation. We want to tell it what to look like. We don't want it to just throw a bunch of stuff on the page. We don't group our items in the navigation, so you don't have to set grouping, but we do have them sorted a certain way. And when we sort them, it's sorted by sort order, an ingenious name thought up by myself. We want to sort them ascending, so we want to count 1, 2, 3, not 3, 2, 1. And we do not want to limit the items to 15 or however many. SharePoint by default has this option checked. Always uncheck it if you're doing a left nav or an overview or an accordion piece, because we want to make sure we show everything that's on the list. Now we're almost there. We've told it where to find the information. We've told it what to find in the information. We've told it how to order it. We just have to give it a template for how to put it on the page. Because you'll notice if, let me just pop in real quick to, gosh darn son of a gun. Let me open up the actual audits page again. You'll notice that, you remember that I told you this information and this information in the nav all comes from the same list, but you'll notice it looks differently based on where I'm presenting it. This, even though it's green and interesting looking, it's completely different in how it's showing up on the page than this, and that's because we're assigning a special template for the HTML to take that data and put it to the HTML. So we do that after you've selected your sort order. You can come down here into what's called the styles section. Now group style we don't care about. Don't touch the group style. Always default. Your group style is always default. Write that down, tattoo it on your hand. Group style is always default. However, your item style will be for left nav. You'll notice, by the way, image on left is the default SharePoint style. Anything from image on left on down, those are out-of-the-box SharePoint styles. You won't be using those. It's everything above left nav. That's what's created specifically for the Secretary of State website. For instance, you'll notice there's the one that tells the home page carousel how to look. There's the one that tells the featured online services on the home page how to look. For you people over in archives and that cool little functionality you have for filtering out your records navigation and your records items, that's where that stuff comes from. You've got a content query web part dropping that on the page. One for the accordion, but left nav, that's what tells the left nav what to look like. Okay, we've given it a template. We've told it where to find the data. We've told it how to sort it. But we also have to tell it what to map. The template is looking for a link, and it needs to know what in this list is the link. And I tried my best to keep the names consistent. So if the template is asking for link, if you look at the list, there is a link column in that list. And so you need to fill out link. I think on only one occasion does it ever really differ from what the template's asking for. One last thing to do. Click the Appearance tab, and we want to tell it no Chrome. Chrome type is none. If you don't do that, when SharePoint loads this to the general public, this blue border and this blue title is going to show up. So that's what's called the Chrome of the web part, all that stuff wrapped around it. We don't want it to have Chrome. So we need to tell it no, click OK, and shazam! I know, right? I'm excited too. Now, I know. And that's all there is to it, to adding the content from the left nav onto the page. See, suppose now the process for adding, I'm just going to open up a page, the audits page here, since these overview pages they're going to be few and far between, and chances are they're going to be set up by web ninjas. You probably won't have to be concerned about actually ever having to set up one yourself. But should you do it, and I'm going to edit this one here rather than actually set one up. I'm editing the audits web part now. Let's just go take a look at how it's configured. Should you do it, it's almost exactly the same. You query the same list, the overview navigation. You filter on the same categories. You sort by sort order ascending. this is where it starts to differ. You tell it to don't limit to anything. You make sure that is turned off, so you show everything. Instead of left nav, you choose overview. And there's one extra field to map, because you remember that those pieces, just to show, it has that little description here that pops up when you hover over it. You have to tell it which one on this list, which field to map to that description. And you'll notice, of course, that we tried to give it the same name to make it easy. So you would have to tell it, use the description field for my list for the description, use the link field for my list for the link, go in, make sure the Chrome's turned off, click OK, and it takes that same data and it presents it in a completely different manner. And I'm not going to do any saving and closing. I'm going to discard my checkout. Remember, if you don't want to save any of the changes you make, you can discard your checkout. And that's pretty much all there is for dealing with the overview nav and the left nav. They both come from the same list, and it's all about dropping that content query web part on the page and setting it up correctly. But what about accordions, you say? Well, let's show you how to embed an accordion on a page. You also do it with a web part, which by now you should know. Click where you want the web part to go. Click Insert. Page will load, or the ribbon will load your choices. Click Web Part. You want Content Rollup, Content Query, Add. And we've got to configure our web part to actually show data. Do the little drop-down menu, Edit, Web Part. And again, you've got to go down the list of things you need to do. You need to tell it where to find the data. So let's query. We want to browse. Now this time, we're not using the overview navigation list. We're using the individual list under, we're doing audits. Remember, audits has its own accordions task, since we're adding accordion tasks to the page. Click on Accordion Task List. So now we've pointed out the right list. Oh, it's got to reload because SharePoint loves to do that. Patience, Bryce, patience. There we go. And you'll notice it's pointing now to the Audits Accordions Task List. We have to filter out which pieces we want to use. And you remember I told you that's in tags. And I'm going to close these other two lists. And here's our list of accordion tasks again. And you'll remember there are, for the audits, we have a tag for every accordion page that's going to be on there with the user-defined terms for what those tags are going to be. And that's how we're going to filter it out. Let's just, for giggles, because we've already been messing with fraud, let's say we want to add the fraud accordion to this page. So we see our keyword is fraud here. So I'm going to filter on tag, again, use contains fraud. And the reason, again, you want to use contains is that several different tags may be assigned to that one item, so it could be used in different places. So contains is just a way of making sure that you get that, and because if we said equal to, it would have to be fraud and nothing but fraud. So we've told it the list. We've queried out our list. We've filtered out items just fraud. We now have to tell it how to appear. Again, we don't group things in our content query web parts in the SharePoint on the SOS site. So we want to sort items by sort order, ascending, show them all, default group style, because again, we're not grouping anything anyway. The item style is going to be the accordion item style. And here is where the one time that when we do the fields to display, we have to tell it what to show up. Again, link has the same name. Content has the same name, you'll notice. There's link, and over here is content, and that maps the link and the content to the template. but you'll notice this field is hash space tag capital H capital T. And the reason it's all one word and here is because the code that doesn't allow me to have spaces in there. So I have hash tag. And basically I'm telling again, for my template, in my template there's a field called title. Use the title from your list for that. There's a field called link. Use the link from your list for that. Use the field called link from your list. There's a field called hashtag, all one word. Use the field called hash space tag for that. And there's a field called content. Use the space content for that. Oh, and by the way, you'll notice 99 times out of 100 when you load it, title is pre-populated for you. SharePoint's smart enough to figure that out, but for some reason it can't figure out the other things. We have to help it along sometimes. You're almost done. The only last thing you have to do is the appearance, is to tell the Chrome none. And a little something I like to do here is I like to say what keyword or words I'm filtering on. I change the title to be keyword equal fraud. And I do that so if I'm ever on a page, I don't have to actually open up the web part to see what I'm filtering on to figure out where those pieces are coming from. And that might come in handy somewhere down the line. Click OK. And the reason I don't do that with the left nav or the overview nav or the overview page is because, you know, those navs and the overviews are supposed to be only in certain areas of the site. So if I'm in audits, I know that nav is generating from audits. If I'm in audits, I know that overview page is generating from the category audits. Since accordions can really theoretically be used anywhere based on how they're tagged, I thought it would be better to throw the keyword up front. I mean, it's not a hassle to go in and edit the web part and see where it is, but isn't it cooler just to see it right there in front of you? But anyway, there's your accordion. So when I click Save and Close, ta-da! I've now dropped that content onto the page. And that, my friends, is pretty much how you'll be doing all your list management. And make sure, I'm going over my notes here to make sure that I did not miss anything. But I think the problem you'll probably run in most is like sometimes configuring the content query web part can be a bit of a hassle till you get the hang of it. But it's a lot better than knowing all that HTML to figure out how to put that on the page in such a way that it doesn't break, and when you click it, it actually works. So hopefully that's a step up for you guys. And once you get the hang of configuring the content query web part, it's not so bad. We use it for just about everything. It's really the heavy lifter in SharePoint. You put your information in a list, you create a template in SharePoint, use a content query to drop that template on the page, and you could use it anywhere for anything. It's you'll start coming up with ideas, and your web ninjas will start coming up with ideas and maybe creating these templates on their own here in the future. We'll see. Anyway, that pretty much covers everything I wanted to talk about. We've covered now yesterday, we covered how to manage our libraries, how to create our pages, and today we've covered the lists, specifically the lists that are important and custom to the Secretary of State website, and how to get that data from those lists onto the page with content query web parts. And I think Adam has a question.
Yeah, sorry to interject. So we got a good kind of real-world scenario that Dave found that I thought might be good if we kind of walk him through. This is just a really good example on the business task overview page. There's a misspelled word in one of the task boxes.
Who did that? Oh. So where's it at?
So if we go to business.
You never seen a guy so excited about his own misspelling, have you? If we go to business, occasionally SharePoint does this and gets you frustrated. So you click again, bam, and you smack the side of your computer. Okay, and where am I going from here?
And then if you scroll down a little bit, notary resources, the word resources is
resources, yes. I can't highlight it for you because when I mouse over it, it does that number. But you'll notice RESROUCS. Now, extra credit question. Where does the content from this come from? Anybody want to answer in chat? There's an extra Ben and Jerry's for you if you get it. Who's been paying attention? Oh, I know somebody out there wants to say, but Bryce, the content comes from the overview navigation list in the parent site. You're right. So we go to the parent site. God, I need to settle down and get some coffee to calm down. View all site content. Overview navigation. And remember what I said about filtering on business on the category that we want to see. Just make it easier to see all our content. Let's filter on business. So that's all my business categories right there. Much easier to manage at this point. And there's my misspelling. Let's see. I've misspelled it right in the title. Oh, I'm looking at notary. I've misspelled it wrong in both places. So I'm going to edit notary resources. We'll change the spelling. And since I can't remember exactly if that's pulling from the title or the list name, in some cases in the template, the text for your links pull from your title. In other places, they pull from your link name that I'm entering here. I'm pointing at my screen like you guys can see that from what I'm entering here. Therefore, try to keep title and whatever your link title, your link text is supposed to be. I just try to keep those the same in these lists, and that will avoid like, oh my God, I've got sources in one and sources in the other, and I can't figure out where it's coming from. But if I can't spell again, Soakers, says. Click Save. Notice it looks much better now. Hit refresh. And there it is. And I didn't even have to edit the page to do that. I just went in and changed some typing in a SharePoint list. You notice the little descriptions when you mouse over those. If I want to go in and add those, I just have to go to the SharePoint list as well. Great example. Ooh, that was fun.
I've got another good question that came in. In terms of creating new pages quickly, is the only way to drop that left nav on the page is the process that you walked us through? There's no macro or anything that could quickly drop that on there?
You are your own macro. Unfortunately, that is the only way to do it, yes. But really, once you get the hang of it, it can go fairly quickly. Just, for example, when I build out all these pre-built the pages that we've got on the site right now, I did it all in the space of an hour, and that's with dropping in the content query web parts, and that's not just one or two pages. That was the entire site. And that's not just the left nav either. That's all the content query web parts. So it's a whole site in 2 hours. It really doesn't slow you down that much because you just go through and you click, fill, click OK, and you're done. And in some cases, it might be easier than actually adding content on the page. So don't be dismayed that you have to do it every single time and there's no macro. Or maybe a little dismayed. I'll allow that. Any other questions? Okay, well, hold on, guys. I think I'm going to unmute you.
The conference has been muted. The conference has been unmuted.
Okay, everybody still there? Everybody still awake?
Yep.
All righty then. I don't have anything else to add. I think that pretty much covers it. I'm sure it's one thing to hear all this. It's a second thing to actually start doing it in practice. Your authors will probably have questions when they get started. There will be a learning curve. They'll be becoming familiar with it. But hopefully it's a process that we've put in place that will make it a little easier for you to maintain your data and maintain your content, and you'll get used to it really quick. And we're here to provide information and help support in any way possible. So,
and Dave also suggested a good thing in terms of if we're getting a lot of tickets regarding one particular issue of how to do something, we could put together some sort of documentation of a step-by-step or possibly a short video that's specific to that task. So as tickets are coming in, if I start seeing a high volume of people asking how to do the same thing, then I'll make sure I create some documentation around that and then share that with everybody.
Yeah, we're thinking more in terms of a cheat sheet than a video.
Sure, yeah, that's fine, yeah.
We can definitely do that too. And since again, this is part of the QA process, is figuring out the pain points in the process itself. So, hopefully we make, we find those and identify them and make them a little easier for you guys.
Yeah, the what you just went over, dropping in the left nav, that definitely needs a step-by-step documentation. We're sitting in a room with several content managers, and we can tell you straight up that one we need a cheat sheet for, definitely.
Okay.
When our eyes glassed over, we knew.
That's half the fun. Now I've created zombies. Yeah, we could probably put something quick and easy together for you to explain what you need to do and how you need to do it.
Yeah, there were some, and there's just some choices that have to be made, and that would help guide folks.
Okay, yeah,
we can do that for sure.
And again, though, once you've done a couple of them, it's going to start to become. It's so easy, even a project manager can do it. I like to say.
Yep.
That's scary. And I have an account.
So, well, any other questions before we wind this up?
I wonder if could we do one more example of creating a new page?
One more, okay.
I think that'd be helpful.
I'll even create one more left nav in a page. I'm already, we have a request to show how to create a page one more time. So, I'm going to start like I am coming in all the way from the beginning. I'm going to start all the way back at the staging site. And if you remember, this is the forward-facing website. This is the piece that people will only see. It's where your typical visitors see. They only see content here after it's been published. We want to get into the authoring site. So remember, you put authoring hyphen at the front of your web page. And it's not going to prompt me for a username and password because I'm already logged in from my current session. I'm going to create something under business this time. So let's go to the business site, and I want to create a page under here. I want to go to Site Actions, View All Site Content, Pages, and I could either add new item or new document. And I want to give it a title, new business page. Description is optional. Remember, SharePoint, you'll notice, tries to create a URL for you. Let's give it something a little more user-friendly and easy for your phone help desk to read over the phone. Let's call it business, since it's the new business page. The default choice is always column nav. That's the one you're going to use 99% of the time, unless you're
business page.
New business page, yes.
Business.
Business. I lied to you, my friend. Only for money, and I'm not making money off this. This is all for free. The default choice is two-column nav. The only other time you might use something different is if you've created a whole new site and you want to create an overview page for it. That's going to be a very rare occasion, and honestly, it'll probably be one of the web ninjas doing it. Create. There's my business page. See, it says new and everything. It's in draft. I can now go to that page. I can now go to that page. There it is. And it's ready for editing. And to edit, you might recall, I can the page tab in the ribbon, and then when the context menu comes up, click the edit button. There's also the drop down in the site actions, edit page. Or I'm a big fan of shortcuts. They've got that edit button right there just waiting for you. Go straight to it. And then from there I can start adding content. I can start adding relative content. But just for fun, let's go ahead one more time and add a left nav to this. We want to add a business left nav to this page. So I click into the left content column content, In the ribbon, you'll notice there's an insert. I want to insert a web part. And again, that's the content query web part, which is under content rollup, content query, add, and there it is ready to go. I do the drop down, edit web part, pull up my control pane. First thing, I've got to tell it where to find its data, and if you might recall, that data is stored in the overview navigation list in the home site. So I want to come down here. I want to show items from the following list. Let me go browse to it. These are all the lists in my home site. There's overview navigation. Okay. My business page is going to reload. I then need to tell it what items from that list to show, because if you remember, everything is on there. I only need the things that belong in the left navigation for a business page. So I'm going to filter on the category. Oops, there, I know what I'm. That contains. I think it's capital B business. We'll find out. So I want everything on that list that has a category of business. And now I'm going to tell it what order I want it to show up in. So I'll expand presentation. I want it to sort the items by the sort order field that I've created. I don't want it to be limited. And I want it to go from lowest to highest. So number 1's first, number 2's second, number 3's third. So I've got everything from the overview navigation list with the category of business, and I'm going to sort it, sort order 1 to the highest, lowest to highest. I then have to give it a template on how to show up on the page. And remember, we have a template under item style called left nav. I then have to tell it what to map. Again, the field, this is the field in the template. It's called link. This empty text field is what the column is called in the SharePoint list. And I tried to keep as much as possible those names to be the same in the template as they are in the list. So that's called link. And this is where the experience of doing these over and over, you don't have to keep opening up the SharePoint list and what did I call this column, what did I call that column. And the last thing I want to do is the appearance. I don't want that ugly Chrome showing up on it. So I want to go in and tell it, no Chrome for you. Click OK. And there's your left nav. Ta-da! I could save and close. And you'll notice at no time in this list is there an active indicator, you know, like, let's open in a new tab here. Do find a business. Like there's an active indicator that says I'm on the find a business page here. If I was to go in to that overview navigation list and add business as a link item here, SharePoint automatically goes in and looks at your items in this list and says, is the page I'm on one of these pages? If it is, I'm going to give it this cool blinged out look so everybody knows what page I'm on. If not, I'm just going to give you a list of what's there. So since there's no business item over here, we don't have an active item highlighted. And that's really all there is to creating a new page. A little better that time around. Want to see it again? Want to go outside and play? You guys have a lovely park in front of the building there, at least the ones over at, in front of the Capitol. Any questions from text? All right, guys, I think that's it then. Thank you for putting up with me. Again, don't forget we're here for you. We'll put together a little piece-by-piece cheat sheet as well for these dropping these content queries on the page. They will get easy, I promise. At least much easier than writing the HTML over and over. I guarantee that. Thank you for putting up with us. We hope you have a lot of success in building out your content. We're looking forward to seeing the finished product.
They can hear us.
Oh, was there a question?
No, we're
We're just talking about you.
we're all excited here.
All right, guys. I'll shut up so you can make excuses to your supervisors to get out of there. And go have a good rest of your day and enjoy the sun, okay?
Thank you,
Thank
Brian.
you.
Thank you.
No problem.
Bye-bye.